Highland Marketing is known for building strategic advantage for the most innovative healthcare and technology organisations. Highland Marketing offer a free virtual workshop to AXREM members. You can find details in the members' benefit document attached to your weekly newsletter. Highland Marketing are the headline sponsor of the AXREM BHTA MedTech Conference running on the 13th of May. Get your tickets now by heading to the AXREM website events page or clicking on the link in the show notes.
Welcome to AXREM Insights, developing healthcare through medtech and innovation. Join Melanie Johnson and Sully Edgington as they talk with our industry leaders and experts.
I'm Melanie Johnson and I'm here with Sally Edgington. Today we have the pleasure to be speaking to Kayleigh Patterson, Product and Release Manager for Digital Pathology at Fujifilm Healthcare UK and AXREM's Digital Pathology Special Focus Group convener. So welcome Kayleigh and thank you for being on our show today. Now let's get started by handing over to you to tell us a little bit about yourself and what's your story.
Hi all, so thank you Mel. So my name is Kayleigh Patterson. I am the Product and Release Manager for Fujifilm UK. I started off my career in the histology NHS laboratory in 2016 at University Hospitals Coventry in Warwickshire. I was there for 12 years where I studied throughout my duration there, progressing to complete my biomedical sciences degree, part-time while still working full-time, in which I obtained a first-class honours degree. I also then went on to participate in my HCPC registration to become a registered biomedical scientist. And within my work at University Hospitals Coventry in Warwickshire, it was the first hospital in the UK to implement digital pathology for clinical diagnostic use over 10 years ago now.
And how did you get into industry then, Kayleigh?
So from there, seeing the impact that digital pathology had within the NHS and the impact to patient timelines, I really kind of felt that it's just the progression and where we need to move from a histology perspective. So as a histology discipline, there's not many things we can do to create any more automation within the process. It's a very manual heavy process in the laboratory, and digitalisation of that is really the kind of move forward. So seeing the impact it had led me to want to focus purely on the digital pathology element.
Fantastic. And have you been at Fuji for all of your industry career, or have you kind of started somewhere else?
Yes, my last few years in the NHS, I supported the digital pathology implementation, which was owned at the time by, the product was owned at the time by GE. And so when that come to a closure, the company who then obtained the software approached me and asked if I would like to join them as an application specialist for the application. Fujifilm then went on to purchase that product, and I've been with Fujifilm for nearly 5 years now. So starting off as a clinical application specialist, progressing to a team leader, and now my position as product and release manager.
Fantastic. So I'm going to set the scene a little bit for our digital pathology special focus group. We've obviously got a very active Future Leaders Council within AXREM, and when we were talking last year about different work streams that group could do, they come up with the suggestion. It's something that I'd thought about previously, of having a digital pathology special focus group, because it's very aligned to imaging in terms of radiology. Obviously it is different and it's a learning curve for us as well, but we had that signed off by our exec committee late last year, and we launched the group with our first meeting being in January. So I know it's quite early days, but I think we've had some really good conversation in the first 2 meetings that we've had, and we've had a lot of interest from other digital pathology companies to want to join AXREM to be part of this group. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you think the priorities are going to be for the special focus group?
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Sally. And as we've seen from our first 2 meetings already, the conversations that are taking place, and that there's so many different industry partners all coming together to support the digital pathology end-to-end installations. Really, it takes many different applications, many different requirements, and to all bring us all together and to hear that we're already aligned on many of our focuses and what we feel needs attention, standardisation. I think it's already proven its benefit to be able to, for AXREM as a platform to be able to support bringing all of these industry members together. And from my experience, it hasn't really happened on such a large scale previously, where it's been so open, transparent and encouraging.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I think that we can see when we had the first meeting, there's quite a lot of alignment in terms of things like DTAC, different things where there's a lack of consistency across the NHS. And obviously that is one of the focuses. And I know we've talked about things like digital versus analog, AI in digital pathology. And I think there could be a lot of learnings from radiology because we've got a very active AI radiology group. And can you maybe just touch on some of the other things that we, in the first meeting, we kind of brainstormed some of the things that the group want to look at in the future. Can you tell us some of those?
So yeah, definitely. I think we desperately need and are crying out for standardisation across the whole digital pathology implementation. So file type standards, image retention guidelines, more specific timeframes, also the use of equipment, be that requirement of medical grade or not. So I think there's definitely standardisation is the top piece that most people are crying out for. And I think it's quite important to kind of note that I think some people kind of refer to digital pathology as still being in its infancy, and I don't believe that to be its case. As I mentioned, the hospital I worked in, that was over 10 years ago now. Digital pathology is not in its infancy, but what is the full adoption of digital pathology. In many hospitals in the UK still haven't have any form of digital pathology implemented. So I think the adoption of that and how potentially we can support industry and as a whole, and of course NHS hospitals, in really highlighting what the benefits are, supporting them when they come to their implementation elements, and kind of future-proofing digital pathology, I think is a real key element to focus on, and future-proofing that. So that's great. We've implemented digital pathology, we're live. How are we going to improve further practices down the line? How are we going to save those cost timelines, those patient timelines, to automatically benefit the patient?
Super. So I know obviously you mentioned the standardisation, etc. And I know in our last meeting we touched on creating some resources to raise awareness. But obviously looking further ahead in horizon scanning, what's next for the world of digital pathology? And do you want to touch on some of the resources that we're looking at creating as part of the group?
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned about the adoption and daily use of digital pathology, once it's implemented and embedded in those daily practices, I think some of the elements that we've been discussing, so educational videos, some end-to-end workflows, and bringing in all of those different industry members that support the digital pathology implementation. We've got everything from storage requirements, your image management system is kind of the core around that, the scanners and which scanner is suitable for your workflow, the scanner variations. Also, as we mentioned, the input devices, the screen, monitor screens, PC screens, for example. So I think being able to bridge all that together in such as an educational video, or even just potentially some white papers as to best practice, I think is always going to be a helpful and a something that people will review and want to look into. And I guess just what's on the horizon is, I'll kind of refer to digital pathology as a bit of a house structure. So first and foremost, we have to embed digital pathology as the foundation of the daily practice and have that embedded into the laboratory. As I mentioned previously, it's a very analog workflow. And what we're doing is, by implementing digital pathology, we're adding an additional step to that laboratory, which is sometimes I feel is overlooked. It is an additional step. It is an additional time element into the overall process. And how can we better support the laboratory in that transition and the change management aspect from analog to digital? So continuing building that house, embedding it as those foundations in the daily practices, gaining the confidence, the experience, those building blocks of using the system on a daily basis. And the future horizons is the likes of AI. I kind of say it as a bit of a window dressing, the curtains to the windows. We have to build the foundations first and have that house made before we can look. So AI is great and it will be coming into our hopefully daily practices, I can see in the future. But first and foremost, we still need to gain the confidence for the pathologists using the system in the first instance, just to fully transition to digital from analog. We can then continue to build and bring in AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really good as well. We've had some key stakeholders involved historically, as in the last couple of meetings, and going forward we've got some really good stakeholders as well. So I suppose it's that kind of like collaborative piece, everybody working together for the greater good, isn't it, again?
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. And Kayleigh, what difference do you think it will make to industry to have a dedicated special focus group and industry voice? Because I'm not aware that any other trade associations within the UK have a dedicated digital pathology group.
No, I totally agree, Sally. And as I mentioned, I think it's just the opportunity for the dedicated special focus group to bring all of the different key industry stakeholders together in alignment. Again, having everyone who contributes to digital pathology to be able to have these open conversations is only going to feature benefit us. We're going to be more standardised in the elements that we have from an industry perspective as well. Like you say, our priority lists, and it's already been, our conversations have been so fruitful already, hearing that actually which individual companies, the image management system providers, for example, that we actually all are aligned, even though we're totally separate companies, our main sticking points are the same. And so to have all of that aligned is only going to future-proof everything that we require even further. So it's just a great opportunity, a great space to be able to bring those elements together. And I totally agree. I don't think there's anything else at the moment that we're aware of where it has been focused on bringing industry together. And I think
absolutely, yeah. And I think it's really exciting. I mean, especially for us, it's a learning curve for us, and we're learning a lot from even the first two meetings and the conversations that I'm having with other digital pathology players within the market. But I think I like the fact when we start a group like this, we start with a blank piece of paper, and you guys, you're the members, you're the experts, you kind of build the agenda, you build the priorities. And what I think will happen is we will probably build this into digital pathology manifesto next year. So once we've established the group a bit more and we've got more alignment, we've got more representation from other companies, we can develop an exciting manifesto with some calls to action. And I think that AXREM can really help in terms of, you were talking about adoption of digital pathology, but I think it's visibility, because it's not a new modality, but some people think it is because it hasn't necessarily had the visibility that it deserves. And I think I look at some of the other areas we work in, digital pathology is the same in the fact that it can create those efficiencies for the workforce where there are workforce shortages. And so I think that we've got a role to play here in raising the visibility, raising some of the issues, and working together to try and solve them with members, but also our external stakeholders. And we'll build those up over a period of time.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think as well, for AXREM to kind of facilitate bringing all of the industry key players together, I think it's just, again, a great platform. Also, I think, as you mentioned, the visibility aspect is, I don't think from a digital pathology perspective, it's understood just how many different key players are actually involved in the end-to-end workflow. So we mentioned, I've spoken quite a lot about the kind of physical aspects, but the integration, we require the LIMS companies to be involved and to partner with us as well, and to bring their constraints and concerns and problems, sticking points to the table as well. So it starts with the integration into either your LIMS system or specimen tracking system, right through to hardware, software, storage elements, as we've mentioned. But there's so many different elements throughout, many different companies, processes, suppliers that are all form part of digital pathology, and that we all need to hear their voice as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know you've kind of semi-touched on this already, but if we can go a little bit broader, what kind of the benefits of being involved in AXREM and different special focus groups, what would you kind of say you would think are the key kind of points for that?
definitely the key benefits. So for me personally, it's been a pleasure to form part of the special focus group for digital pathology support in AXREM. I think it's just so much initiative in wanting and seeing that there's actually requirements and elements that we can further support. Again, just being the alignment from a supplier perspective to know that actually our headache is other people's headaches. And I think ironing out some of those sticking points is only going to benefit us as suppliers, again, underpinned by AXREM and the special focus group. And again, for the patient at the end of the day. So yeah, being part of the special focus group, just seeing all of those elements come to light it's refreshing. It's refreshing to know.
Yeah, and I think being able to provide a safe space and forum for you to have those conversations, obviously we're governed by competition or guidance, and so I think that's important that members know that, you know, there is a safe space. And also I think no matter what size company, everyone's equal around the table, so everyone's got an equal voice. And one thing I have noticed, especially at the first meeting, was every single person in the room spoke and everyone was able to put their points forward. And I always say to people, it's a really weird dynamic that you bring all of these highly competitive companies together, and actually when we're in a room together, I feel like we're one big happy family. And maybe I've got a naive approach to this, but it does feel very positive. And I see relationships building. I see from the back of AXREM partnerships building and companies starting to work together on different initiatives. And I think that's such a unique platform that we're able to provide to industry, and that's what I get so much satisfaction from my job, being able to provide that to members.
No, I totally agree, Sally. As I mentioned, for me, it's almost like I say, well, it is refreshing. It's like you say, everything kind of gets left at the door, and it's right. We're here. We all, you know, our daily jobs or our passion, for me specifically and personally, is digital pathology, and that's why we're in the room. That's why we're having these conversations. It's not a provider to provide a conversation. It is digital pathology as the focus, and what can we do to help? And I think that is the kind of main sentence surrounding it all. And with it, it is just so refreshing to, like you say, we've had everyone participate, everyone, you know, happy and confident to raise their concerns, questions or opinions. And it's like you say, everyone's equal, and it's refreshing.
I know me and Sally spoke when I first started about building this like AXREM community, and I definitely feel like we are delivering on that. It's like you say, it's such a nice environment, and it's weird to say that, like you say, Sally, because you've got the competitors in the room, but it is really nice, and it surprised me actually, obviously, when I come into the business. So it's great. So let's just move on slightly to my quirky question. So if you had a time machine, would you choose to go to the future or back to the past, and why?
So for me, I'm going to vote past. So for me personally, I'm quite excited for what the future holds, and I don't want to necessarily spoil that. But yeah, so I'd say definitely go back to the past, not to necessarily change anything specific of the course of my life for me personally, but just for those elements I think most people would say if they were going into the past, spend more time with loved ones that aren't here, potentially worry less about things that now when you're a little bit older, a little bit more wiser, know that do not impact anything or are not to be concerned of. And also maybe just to embed some balance of nutrition and exercise, so I don't have to yo-yo diet my whole life. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, I concur. A little sneaky look at the 6 numbers on the lottery would be probably nice as well to add to that.
That would be helpful. Yeah, it would always be helpful for sure.
Oh no, that's a good answer. Thank you.
Kayleigh, thanks so much for joining us today. We've learned more about yourself and the Digital Pathology Special Focus Group, and congratulations on your new role as convener of that group. And I'm really looking forward to working with you over the next couple of years to see how we can develop it. So a big thank you to Kayleigh for joining us, and thank you to all of our listeners.
Thank you all. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Melanie.
Join Sally and I again next week when we will be speaking to James Bill and Jack Bond about the AXREM's Future Leader Council. If you have enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to hit subscribe, or feel free to share the podcast with friends.
Before you go, Have you booked your ticket to the MedTech conference held by AXREM and the BHTA taking place on the 13th of May? If you haven't, you are missing out. Make sure you head over to the link in our show notes to book your tickets or head to the events page on our website. We are meeting at the Mercure Hotel in Northampton, 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. We have key speakers from NHS, MHRA, NICE, the government, and more. All the details are on our website. The link for tickets is in the show notes. We hope to see you there.